Unveiling the 5 Hidden Secrets of High-Performance Channel Marketing. I'd like to begin with an introduction of our speakers. First, we have Laz Gonzalez, Service Director, Channel Management Strategies at SiriusDecisions. As Director of Channel Management Strategies, Laz brings a proven track record of executing successful revenue-generating programs through channel sales and marketing. During a career spanning close to 2 decades, Laz has gained extensive executive frontline and international experience implementing solution-driven sales programs with OEMs, strategic alliances, distributors, and value-added resellers. Laz attended the U.S. Air Force Academy and majored in computer science at Rutgers University. Great to have you today, Laz.
Thank you, David. Appreciate being here.
Also today we have Ken Romley, who is President and CEO of Zift Solutions. He is the driving force behind Zift's strategic vision and mission to offer channel marketing automation solutions to help global brands drive channel revenue. Ken has co-founded and run a wide range of technology and internet-based enterprises while leading innovations in marketing technologies. Ken has a BS in Operations Research and an MS in Computer Science from Cornell University. Welcome, Ken.
Thanks, David.
And with that, Laz, I'll hand it over to you and let you get us started.
Excellent. So what are we going to cover today? As David said, the idea is to share with you some best practices, some hidden secrets. And I'll start with the best practices, and then I'll hand it over to Ken, who's going to really get you into those hidden secrets that you're all waiting for. But as far as an agenda for the best practices, the first thing we're going to take a look at is the SiriusDecisions demand waterfall. And we're going to use that as sort of a navigational guide through some of the issues and some of the best practices that I'll be sharing with you. Then we're going to dive in and start talking about role segmentation and propensity modeling. And this is something that we see leading channel programs utilize to get better effectiveness in their demand creation. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll try to discuss, what's all this fuss about inbound and social, and what does it mean to, from practical terms, to organizations who are trying to drive net new business or even communicate thought leadership in the channel. Then we'll warm you up and then sort of talk about one of the tougher issues in channel marketing, which is around closing the loop with partners. So we'll try to tackle that and give you some guidance on, what leading companies are doing, and we'll even share a case study from HP Software. So with that, let's start with the SiriusDecisions demand waterfall. Now, some of you have seen the waterfall before. This is what we call the Re-Architected Waterfall. Typically speaking, it's broken down into 4 parts. You can see the inquiry, the marketing qualification, the sales and the close. And each one of these represents different stages of lead progression. It becomes almost like a marketing toolbox for us to start thinking about, how do we delineate between inbound and outbound, and how can we tell if one tactic is working better than the other? It also helps us track automation qualified leads. So you can see in the marketing qualification section, we account for different types of qualification: automation qualified, telequalified, and these will be the types of qualifications that take place before we pass the lead on to the partner. Once we do pass the lead on to the partner, then we're at that sales accepted stage where sales begins to qualify those leads. And on the one hand, we've got sales accepted, but then we also have the ability to go in there and start talking about those leads that are actually generated by partners themselves. So we'll look at some of those as well. So as you can see, the demand waterfall is sort of a great compass for us to utilize to start talking about where these different areas of channel marketing have the greatest impact. And so we'll use that for the remaining section of my part of this presentation. So now let's start with segmentation and predictive analytics. And it's really all about narrowing down your suspect list so that you gain greater effectiveness in your demand creation activities. Now, when we start any channel program that focuses on driving leads with partners, we really need to start thinking about, who are the right businesses that have the highest propensity to buy. So companies usually start there and they start targeting their partners, but it also becomes important for them to score and prioritize businesses that they already have in their databases. So it's important to kind of combine these two, and then using this, really start thinking of a way to upsell and cross-sell to these customers. They say that the existing customer has a 3 times chance of taking you up on an offer than a customer you don't know. And with that knowledge, we need to market differently to these organizations. So really segmenting the partners is as important as segmenting the customers, because we don't want to work with just any partner. We want to work with partners who have maybe possibly already established contact with the buyer or have an existing relationship there. So when we talk about propensity modeling and predictive analytics, some companies now are starting to use that data. So either they create tools of their own, they buy the shelf, or even work with distributors, for example, who sit on a mountain of data like what we're showing you here on the screen, where when you can take that partner data that shows, hey, here are the partners who are most likely to succeed based on their interactions with my buyer, right? We can then combine that with the historical data that pertains back to the customer. So we can start thinking about, which partners have the best ability to cover those customers, who has the best capability to sell specific solutions to that customer. And one example would be that if someone is buying, let's say, a help desk utility from a partner, and they're trying to cross-sell asset management, well, that's a natural progression. Usually when a customer service rep is helping somebody through a help desk, maybe they also want to understand, what's the landscape of technology in the business, and they might use an asset management tool. So that's a great way of now having that 1-2 combination. So we want to isolate those partners who already sold that help desk, or if we're talking about servers who already, may have sold something into that organization before. And one thing that can also help us is, how well prepared are these partners? So we just don't want to look at lagging metrics. That means metrics that actually happened already. We want to look at some leading metrics and maybe start identifying which one of those partners have achieved certain levels of training or certification within our program. Now, in order to do propensity modeling or to do any kind of this predictive analytics, we really have to have some prerequisites for success. Now, again, using the SiriusDecisions Demand Waterfall, this is going to have its greatest impact at the marketing qualification stage, right? So what we want to make sure is that we have a strong culture of account-based marketing. So if we're going after these accounts, we know how to mine that data. So we're going to move from mass marketing to really highly relevant target-based marketing. From a process standpoint, we want to make sure that we understand and can employ account-based marketing and lead scoring, and even service level management between partners so that they understand what needs to be done within a certain time frame. And the skills your organization will have to have is really fine-tuning that message and that content development so that you can provide those talk tracks that allows the partner to upsell and cross-sell. Now, from an ecosystem requirement and more having to do with infrastructure, we want to make sure that we have a centralized marketing database that will help us initiate this kind of activity, and also be able to mine that data and extract profiles of successful accounts that we can go after. Now, lead scoring plays a really important role here, because with the realization that not all leads will convert themselves, lead scoring will help us predict which ones will. And somewhere in that data, there are going to be clues that will tell us who can convert the best in terms of leads. So that big data mining is really important. So theoretically, it's possible with all these clues that you can pull together is really start zeroing in on the right prospect and the right partner. But bear in mind, we need to be realistic. It's not possible to account for all 100% of the clues that are out there in the universe. We want to be able to get closer to the answer. So I'm not asking you to think about, getting every detail or uncovering every nuance of information that you can, but just narrow down your suspect list. Narrow down your partner suspect list. And then rather than take a wide swath and apply the program to everyone, pick those partners who have the highest propensity and go after them in terms of working together. So lead scoring can help. It doesn't account for everything, but it certainly can be helpful in moving the ball forward and having much more successful campaigns. The second best practice we want to share with you here is really around inbound and social. And really, we want to start demystifying this and really describe what's this fuss all about, right? And, again, let's call up the demand waterfall. And one of the realities that we see in terms of, at the top of that waterfall is that programs tend to be overbalanced. So you see a lot of outbound marketing taking place. And by that I mean, a lot of email, a lot of cold calling, working off a suspect list, and then blasting that list and seeing who takes the bait. But they say that the two tactics that really attract new buyers is customer references and thought leadership. If you can show me that you can educate me and help me understand, and you can also point me to customers that have experienced this in the past, chances are that I'm going to pay attention to you. And that's why those leads tend to convert at a much higher rate. But the tactics that are typically used, like social media, SEO, and pay-per-click, those inbound tactics, are rarely leveraged by partners. So really, it's up to the supplier to step in and show them how. When we look at rebalancing this mix, we should use that buyer's journey alignment as sort of a way of doing this. So if we think about rebalancing, the idea to take a sobering look at what's really happening with that buyer during their journey, and then create prescriptive programs that can help them along. So as I blow out this journey and you start thinking about it, the journey consists of, changing the customer's perception and then having them include you in the possible list of solutions that they might want to obtain, and then helping them commit to your solution and validate that solution. That's kind of what takes place during this buyer's journey. But the important thing is to recognize that sales only gets involved in present day halfway through that journey. In other words, the customer won't call out to a salesperson to come and show them the differences until they've already been influenced. And that influence is really where marketing's role is going to take place. So with that recognition that marketing can really help us in the front is where we're going to want to focus those inbound tactics. Now, they say the devil is in the delivery, and one of the things that we advocate at SiriusDecisions is to start thinking about delivering those programs in an easy-to-use manner that the partner can simply go to a menu and see the different types of inbound tactics that you have and select one. Now they can apply MDF to that, but what's really important is to let them know how long this will take, what's included, and what would be the estimated results. So as you can see here, I've stacked my menu with ad retargeting, Google AdWords, search engine optimization, multi-touch emails, and even social syndication. These are 5 tactics that make a lot of sense to use if you're trying to drive that net new business. So as partners come to you, provide them with a menu like this where they can select. Some of you might be thinking, yeah, but that doesn't take me as far as I want to go. Well, here's what I would suggest. Don't try to make partners expert marketers. Many times they don't have the skills or the resources to do this. So by being more prescriptive in your delivery, you can achieve the same results by making it easier for them to engage and then give them the results of those engagements by running some of these programs through some of the platforms that you're going to hear about today. So again, make sure the delivery is accounted for. Now, With that, we want to move on to the third area, which is really around closing the loop with partners. And as we start thinking about closing the loop with partners, let's call up our waterfall again and recognize that this is going to be more difficult at the bottom of the demand waterfall when those leads are in the hands of sales. And there's a lot of reasons why this happens, right? First of all is that you don't get a lot of reporting. You know, partner salesmen are very busy selling right now, and they're not likely to take a time out and just to fill you in on what's going on. Some partners are very cautious about what they share. So you find them sandbagging leads, a common term used in sales, where they don't let you know about the lead until it actually happens. We kind of joke about that at SiriusDecisions. We call it the Immaculate Conception. The lead comes out of nowhere and no one can explain where it came from. And this is typically something that happens when partners don't have trust with their supplier, and they only let them know about this at the very end when the lead is ready to close. That doesn't do very much for us to be more predictive or even be able to forecast the business. So we want to make sure that partners have that level of trust. And that goes to either those leads being poached by direct or other channels, or it could even be that technology stands in the way. Systems don't talk to each other. There's no integration, so there's really no way to pass the information from the partner CRM system into your system. So these are all the reasons why visibility is a problem. Let's talk about how to improve visibility. And to start improving visibility, one of the things that organizations do is they make it easy for partners to register leads. Now, in order for partners to register those leads, especially in sales-generated leads, email works best. So if you have a format or a template that you can send to the partner that's usable through either an HTML email or something like Outlook, for example, this will allow them to fill out the form, hit the send button, and send you the information, which can then create a lead record on your side, or at least a registration record. So keep it to email if you're looking to simplify. Another thing that you should think about is the old saying, if you really want to get an update, reach out and touch someone. So use teleservices to manage and update the progress on leads. That could be a concierge service that calls a partner at the beginning of some kind of demand generation program and then walks them through, hey, here's what we're going to do over the next 30 days. We're going to set up this program. It's likely to generate anywhere from 20 to 30 leads in the first 30 days. Once we create these leads, I'm going to call you and send the leads to you. But 2 weeks after, I'm going to call you back, and we're going to go back and look at what happened to those leads so we get a fair assessment of how they've been disposed of. So this is really important to think about teleservices as being a way of doing this a little bit better. Now, another thing is that you kind of have to put yourself in the shoes of the partner to really understand what's being asked of them. And oftentimes, the partner might be getting one lead or drips and drabs of leads, and then at other times they might be getting, a bunch of leads that came from an event or some kind of, activity that created them. See, what you want to do here is be very predictable. You want to let the partner know when they're going to be receiving these leads and set a regular cadence. So maybe every Monday afternoon you're going to stack the leads up and then push them out to the partner so that they have a way of planning their day, planning their week, and making sure that, hey, Monday's an office day for me. This is when I'm going to be receiving the leads from my supplier, and I should dispose of them right there, or maybe take that next week to start setting up and following up on the leads that are being sent to me. So really important to be predictable here. Another thing is that technology can help, but bear in mind you want to use technology to tap into a partner's Salesforce automation, then you're going to need to use some type of connection technology to integrate the two. And that's very possible. I mean, even Zift Solutions today, who is going to talk to you about some of the hidden secrets, they've got this capability. If you're using such a system, remember, keep it simple. Don't put too much in there. Don't expect partners to adopt it 100% up front. Show them the value. Get them engaged. Show them some results. And then reporting is bidirectional. You only get as good as you give. So regularly provide partners with some insight, some report that could show them, here's what's happening to those leads as they're being nurtured before we send them to you. And that kind of sets the tone for how you're going to start sharing this information. So closed loop, been around for a lot. Not many people have been able to solve it, but there are some prerequisites before we can actually start implementing some of these strategies. The first thing is to establish a level of transparency into those marketing source and partner generated leads. So, communicate clearly what that spirit of engagement is with those partners and let them know that this information is not going to be shared with anyone else, so it's okay for them to share it with you. From a process standpoint, sometimes these agreements need to be memorialized. And we see a lot of companies employing service-level agreements with their partners, kind of saying if we send you a lead, you have 48 hours to either approve or deny that lead. And also hold yourself accountable. Because remember, if a partner sends you a lead, they're waiting for you to say yes or no based on anybody else who could be possibly working with this customer before they pick up the phone and call them for that second appointment. So timing is everything here. Also, from a skill standpoint, you heard me say that you need to be prescriptive, and that's really important. Be predictable with those partners. Guide them like a Sherpa guiding the mountain climber up the mountain pass. Show them what steps to take next. That's going to be clearly important here. And from a skill standpoint, if you're going to adopt some of those email integration or even some of the system level integration between a marketing automation platform, a customer relationship management system, or even a channel marketing and management system, integrating that takes some skill. So make sure that we got folks on board who understand that, or you're working with a vendor that can help you. Now, from an ecosystem requirement, again, this requires a centralized marketing database and that integrated channel marketing and Salesforce automation platform. Teleservices is going to be important, so having those established teleservices available to the partners will only help you get better visibility. And if you don't use teleservices, like I said, there's some tools out there, like a point-of-sale tool that can report on sell-through data at the distribution level. So again, this is going to have the greatest impact down here at the bottom. And let me share with you a case study that shows how one company, HP, was able to do this successfully. So HP was a company that we recognized at the SiriusDecisions Summit, I believe it was last year, where we talked about how they're closing the loop with partners. And when we think about closing the loop at HP really could only see statistics and numerical results on their end. And what they really started thinking about is, how can we leverage a platform that can feed us the information that we need about the leads partners are working from? Well, one of the things that they had to do first was really address the trust issue. So the platform that they chose, in this case it was Zift, they made sure that it was hiding some of the data that maybe the partner didn't want to share. So maybe the lead amount, the company, or maybe the expected close date was information that they really wanted, but they didn't have to get into the details of the email addresses or the contact information, things that would make that partner feel jittery about sharing that information. And then they took this and they pushed it out across various regions and allowed partners to apply their own messaging and their own branding based on the platform's capabilities. Now, with this approach, HP was able to accommodate two types of leads. Leads that were generated from automation from HP's own marketing efforts, and leads that partners were using as they created some of their own digital campaigns. Now, they sent information over to the partner directly from the system, so those leads made it into the partner CRM, so there was no delivery errors, and we've heard it all, something like sending spreadsheets across, sending emails with leads, and sometimes all of those fall into the cracks. But from using those system-to-system interfaces, those connectors that we mentioned about, they were able to start seeing how leads were converting. So as the leads were converting from inquiry to marketing qualification to sales accepted, and then they would look at things like how much pipeline was being generated and what stage these leads were. Again, they didn't have to pull all the detail. This gave them enough to start forecasting the business. With this information, they were then able to look at converted opportunities, they were able to look at pipeline, they were able to look at stage advancement, and this really made a difference because HP then took a weekly approach to collecting this data and pulled it so that they can have really their finger on the pulse of what's going on in terms of demand creation with their partners. So I think this is a really great story to be able to see how, at a systems level, these two systems were able to talk to each other, and the approaches that they had to take, protecting the partner's data and only looking at the things that were most important to them. The critical success factors were really around capturing a single source of truth and integrating that data into both HP systems and the partner systems. So partners had to recognize that they played a critical role in the demand creation process, but they couldn't do this alone. Also, another success factor was that suppliers couldn't manage what they couldn't measure. So really capturing any and all information about mutual prospects and customers may not have been necessary, but capturing only the relevant parts were. And in order to do this, they needed to make some key investments. So they had to invest in strengthening that trust with partners, in protecting their data, and putting some guarantees in that those leads remain theirs. Something to think about as you start developing these lead generation programs with your partners. Now, what impact did this have? Well, as HP rolled out its unique lead management tool to partners, it gave full visibility into what was happening in the business. So from a strategic standpoint, it was really all about that shared pipeline. From a channel program ROI, they set their sights on looking at those marketing qualified to sales accepted to sales qualified. In other words, when the leads are generated, when they're registered by partners, and then later when they show up in forecast and pipeline opportunity reports. And from a business standpoint, this really accelerated the sales cycle for them, because if they saw things taking, if they saw a lead progressing slower from one stage to the other, they knew exactly where to target their efforts. Now, impact can always be measured in a quantifiable way, and HP did just that. They noticed that by using this process, they could see their CRM system usage up by 60%. They also saw a 25% improvement in lead cycle time. Talk about speed to market, right? And from an impact on the business, really it was all about that lead to pipeline to close process and how that offered them better visibility. And it actually improved the relationship with HP sales, because through their trust with marketing, they then extended that trust out to the sales teams that were supporting them locally. Now, with these three examples in the case study that I shared with you, I just want you to think about the following action items as you now go back and try to take this back into your organization. First of all, when we talked about propensity modeling, it's really important to leverage any insight you can gain through segmentation, how we described today. Don't just focus on the buyer, but also focus on the partner, and narrow down those odds so you have a higher chance to be successful. When you're delivering those programs, be prescriptive. Employ those inbound tactics, but remember, try to make sure that you make it easy for the partners to look at that information, to receive the leads, to report back on them. And that's going to drive effectiveness. Also, when we start thinking about closing the loop with partners, we talked about providing them with some reporting, something that shows them that you're willing to give as much as you want to get. And this builds transparency and bidirectional reporting in your relationships with those partners. Remember, process precedes technology. So before you lift a finger and start thinking about implementing a system, one of the things I want you to think about is really thinking about what that process is going to look like. How do we want partners to access the information? What are we going to do in terms of define them? okay? And that's going to be really important and going a long way to make sure that whatever technology you do implement has got a real sound plan behind it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken now, who's going to share with you some best practices around those hidden secrets that you were promised. So Ken, why don't you share with us what those hidden secrets are that everyone's been waiting for?
All right, thanks, Laz. Yeah, as Laz was describing a bunch of the stuff going on, that we actually see a lot of this play out, that we work with thousands of channel partners every day working to enhance their marketing and sales efforts, and thought we'd take some of the things revealed by our analytics and take some of the key points that we think really move the needle on improving performance when you look at that demand waterfall and the different aspects, and where you can start adjusting your processes to take advantage of that level of understanding about how people are making buying decisions today. And so to start with, the first thing that we've noticed from our client base is that today the buyer is really driving a lot of their own education process. That if you looked at what Laz described as the top of that demand waterfall, it used to be that salespeople could walk their prospects through that process. That's not the case anymore. And with people being self-directed, they really look all over for that information. Some of it's certainly on the website, but it's also out in social media. It's also out on video sites. It's places like LinkedIn. It's newsletters and offline events. It's the whole mix that works effectively, and it's not just our research, but it certainly is what we see with the campaigns that are run through our system. But also, this was a survey done in 2014 by Marketing Profs, that we just see that people who are out where the prospects are as they're learning about solutions end up doing better overall. And to sort of highlight this, I wanted to go through, we not only do this with our channel partners, but this is the approach we take for marketing our own company. And so I wanted to show, this is an actual customer, and if we just looked at the interactions that led to one of the deals that we had in place, that it was signed by the director of channel marketing, who started from internet search, and so it was based on the SEO of our site and having good capture forms with information there. But that was really only a small part of the story. That we also see that key influencers got started, and that was actually through social media, a LinkedIn group. And as we dug even deeper, there was the whole set of people that were involved in the buying decision, and some, off with an industry trade show, off the internet, and then lots of different tactics across the board. And these were just the first touches. Then we went on the ongoing nurturing as well, and saw that the fact that our message was really in many places is what lended itself to a successful sales effort. And so this wasn't really about channels specifically, this is about sales in general. But if this is the right way to do sales today, we think it's important that as people are putting significant funds into MDF and co-op and collaborative sales efforts, that they recognize sort of this new reality of selling, where you have to be in all the tactics, because you're not going to have a sales guy, or the channel partner is not going to have a sales guy who walks people through the process of buying. That channel partners are going to have to step up to doing marketing in a much more significant way in the past, because they have to be out there with their brand recognition to educate partners. And that sort of brings me to the second key secret we've seen with our client base about what works very effectively. And that's where the people that run channel programs take an active role in evangelizing these new realities. That if they can take stats like the ones that we can provide, or the ones that SiriusDecisions has out about the importance of multi-tactic coordinated approach to getting your sales message out and moving people through that demand waterfall, that you end up driving much bigger pipeline, because your partners are much more successful if they have that foundation of modern marketing techniques as part of their general business practices. And sort of one of the sort of hidden gems that we've seen is that there are actually a lot of people who can help you in this, and it doesn't even have to cost anything, that there are people with a vested interest in getting this message across. And some of the marketing platforms that would like to help make your channel partners more effective on their independent efforts, people like HubSpot and Marketo, we've seen them getting really good speakers with great statistics set up to talk to channel partners. And so it's one of the things I would offer out. If anyone wants to contact me afterwards, we can help set up these programs with sort of well-known speakers, and just sort of use your ability to drive an audience, and we can get great presentations together to help in this evangelizing modern marketing. And to sort of emphasize how important this is, I have here an infographic from Chief Marketech. This was actually about a year old, and what it's showing is all the different technologies that are going into supporting this multi-tactic approach of having marketing tell that first part of a sales story. And if you go out, this can be overwhelming. This is, I think, over 2,000 companies, and so your channel partners are hearing a lot of noise. It can seem overwhelming. In the past, they've been able to just concentrate on the sales effort, and to be able to help them make sense and say, hey, sort of that easy menuing approach to starting to put things together can be tremendously valuable, so that people aren't overwhelmed, your channel community isn't overwhelmed and sort of stunned into inaction, because buyers are demanding that they get better in marketing. So anyway, that was the second secret. The third secret also goes towards one of the themes that Laz mentioned earlier on, and it's around segmentation of your partner base. And he was talking about some of the importance of knowing which partners are selling to which type of clientele to find out who's most successful. We've also found that segmenting into their effectiveness with marketing is often a very good tactic. That we find a lot of the big programs have sort of three tiers. They have the people who are already sort of on this bandwagon and do a pretty good job of marketing, and they tend to be the bigger partners who are making a lot more revenue. Then there's a tier that's seems to have potential. Maybe they have, just like Laz said, the exact right demographic in their existing client base, but they haven't yet shown the revenues because they haven't been doing a good job with this marketing. So these are sort of your high potential group. And then there's another group that maybe just joined the channel program for something that was through serendipity, or just happened to be able to upsell on one particular client and haven't really shown the commitment yet. And there you want a base of marketing stuff that you can sort of watch what they're doing, but wait to see if they're people you should really invest in. And so when you can focus your business on the partners, you want a base for everybody in terms of marketing support. But if you can really step up and provide the help in moving people to that multi-tactic infrastructure for especially that middle tier, that's where you can really move the needle. And we've seen a lot of our programs be able to make significant strides by really focusing in that middle tier. And so that was my third secret. And part of that goes to what my fourth secret is, and that's around providing campaigns to the existing base. These are the upsell and cross-sell campaigns that Laz said people are 3 times more likely to buy from somebody they've already bought from. We also have some statistics about just how effective it is, that even more so than some of the stuff Sirius said about being significantly easier to sell into the existing base. And in fact, if we look into where the sales come, it might look like net new sales for a particular supplier going through a channel partner, but because we have visibility into their systems, we're able to get some statistics that really a lot of them maybe sold a product from a different supplier. And so the true net new is really a relatively small percentage. And so you want to make sure that the nurturing messaging that you're supporting in the collaborative sales and marketing efforts really has enough information for people who have already begun a relationship with that channel partner. That one of the mistakes we see people make is sometimes focusing too much as if everybody's net new and really giving this sort of short shift as a secondary thought. So that's fourth secret. And then fifth, final secret is also something Laz was talking about in sort of the HP case study and how they were able to very effectively use the new visibility to drive significant increase in pipeline and in sales. That we've seen the same thing, that measurement is tremendously valuable in this new environment, that everything on the internet is so trackable that doing A/B tests and really seeing what works and what doesn't is the best way to quickly optimize the ability to generate pipeline. And in fact, just as a sort of case study of one example client we worked with, a mid-sized ERP company, they started originally, they made that first mistake of really concentrating sort of heavily on net new product-focused information that was too late in the demand waterfall, saw that it wasn't getting the traction that they had predicted, was able to do some tests where they did some earlier thought leadership pieces that went out more broadly in different marketing channels and had a great upswing in the amount of revenue that was being generated. Then they found, hey, they're producing a lot of content. Could they get the same results with less frequency, and started to play with that and really scaled back the amount of content that they were producing, and saw that, hey, this is a big mistake, that as soon as they scaled back, they went over sort of a critical threshold and weren't getting enough information out there, that all of a sudden the pipeline wasn't getting the boost that they saw before. So you could dial it in to really come up with the best way to improve the programs and very quickly improve them to really optimize your marketing spend. And so these are 5 secrets every program can do today. I also have a 5th sort of bonus secret in place, and that's about the value of working where your partner will work. And before saying how this applies to the channel, I just was going to share a story that was in the Wall Street Journal around pizza delivery. And what they found was for many years, the mom and pop shops were really gaining on the national chains, people like Pizza Hut, and gaining market share with sort of a reputation of having a higher quality product, tastier pizzas. But that all started to change where in, I think it was 2009, as on the graph, all of a sudden there was a major shift, and the major chains really came back sort of with a vengeance. And according to the story, it was really attributed to these chains' ability to put out ordering apps that a lot of pizza gets set through home delivery. And as soon as they made it more convenient that the mom and pops had home delivery, but they didn't have the ability to produce the apps on the iPhone and the Android, that just made it really easy to order from Domino's and Pizza Hut, that ease of use completely changed the trend and had them start growing. Now, taking sort of those lessons into the channel, what would that entail? And basically what it means is, instead of necessarily having a partner portal where you have people come to you, take that base with a lot of great information, ideally taking advantage of some of the secrets I said before to make sure you're targeting the right people with sort of easy multi-tactic campaigns, but take those features and instead of forcing them to come to your portal and be competing against the other suppliers they work with, sometimes many of them, if you can take the pieces of your portal and export them out through apps and extend the environments where your channel partners are, that suddenly you get much higher engagement and much higher visibility. It's actually one of the things we did with our embedded access technology in HP, but you know, it's a hidden secret whether you use us or somebody else. It's to make sure that you don't force your people to come to the portals if they have an infrastructure already, and almost all the partners have something. But by embedding in either their marketing automation system, maybe something like HubSpot, and also their CRM system, something like Microsoft Dynamics or Salesforce, it just gives you some of those other hidden secrets, the ease of use, and specifically the measurement in an easy way. And you know, like Soy Pizza, when you made it that much easier, suddenly way more engagement with your collaborative marketing and sales message versus some of the other suppliers who haven't gone that extra step. And so just to review, the 5 hidden secrets, multi-tactics is the way to go. People are self-directed. You got to be out there where they're looking. That's a new reality. You got to help your channel partners come along. That's number 2, evangelizing the modern marketing. It's a big job, so you want to focus on the people where you're going to get the best return. That's the segmentation of your partners, number 3. Number 4 is in that marketing message with the multi-tactic approach. Don't forget that most of the sales from the channel partners are really going to be into their existing base, and so make sure you have enough of the focus on upsell and cross-sell. And finally, to prove all this stuff out, you want to count on measurement and make sure that you take a scientific approach to marketing, which is now possible. And finally, to make all these things more effective, instead of necessarily forcing people to come to you to get this collaborative support, anything you can do to bring these features out into your partners' environments can have a great return. And so with that, I was going to turn it back to David.
That's great. Thanks, Ken, and thank you, Laz, for the great content today. We've now reached the Q&A portion of our event. We've received quite a few questions along the way, so we will get to as many of those as we can in the allotted time. So I'll go ahead and kick this off. Probably for you, Ken. It says you mentioned integrations with Salesforce, HubSpot. I think you maybe mentioned Microsoft Dynamics. Are there other systems you integrate with?
Oh, yeah. You know, when we're talking about where the partners are, we're sort of committed at Zift to be in any of these systems. And so, like, you know, things like Pardot, HubSpot, and I think it's 12 different CRM systems that across the board, it's not just there. It's wherever they're spending their day. You have to see where their marketing support is and also their sales support. And so these new SaaS platforms that are really the backbone of a lot of these efforts all have open APIs that allow you to take the key functionality and extend from the good information in a portal, but go that next step and bring it right into their current environments.
Great. So next question. So it says we talked a lot about thought leadership content, and the question is, what sort of posting frequency would you recommend? Laz, you want to start, and then maybe Ken, you can add your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to realize that thought leadership and inbound kind of go together, right? So you don't want to be too verbose or trying to be too pushy with that information. I think the frequency of blogging is going to be important because that's where you could really get that communication out there. So I think at minimum, once per week, you want to include some kind of social content that the partner can take and maybe write about or discuss. So, you know, from a tactic like that, I think that it's certainly going to be, you know, a frequency that is less often than something like Twitter. Ken, do you have any insights on what you've seen with some of the other tactics?
Yeah, I think it's very much dependent on where you're going out. So agree completely. We've seen the best response with once a week blogging. But you go to something like Twitter, it's 2 or 3 times a day. You really want to get your message out there with things like a newsletter. Typically, you don't want more than once a month going out. Otherwise, you start seeing people unsubscribe from that information. Same thing with LinkedIn. Hugely valuable network, but you don't want to inundate your network with updates that they're 2 or 3 times a month at most, not 2 or 3 times a day. And so depending on where that message is out, and people are going to be consuming it, like you said, Laz, in these bite-sized pieces, you want to go out and get the right cadence for those different channels out to your audience.
Great. So I think we've got time for maybe one more question, and I think this is a good one. I think we hear this a lot on our side, and it's asking, what are some of the typical obstacles to implementing a successful partner marketing program? And so what are some of the obstacles you see and things you recommend to overcome them? Laz, you want to start?
Yeah, I think, suppliers have become quite sophisticated in their partner marketing efforts, right? They've invested in some platforms. They've created, different tactics for different results. But I think one of the things that could really thwart your effort is the data that you use in these campaigns, whether it's the target customer data or it's the partner data. I think that's an Achilles heel of any marketing program, that if you start off with bad data, chances are you're going to get bad results. So I think that's going to be one of those things that could be a huge obstacle. It has nothing to do with whether or not you have the right technology in place, but did you really invest in making sure that you have reliable data, you have a good list, and it's something that the partner will agree with you on. In other words, partners know of 2 different types of leads, junk that they know about and junk that they don't know about, right? So you want to make sure that there's some confidence in the data that you're using to create these leads. That's one that I would think is really important to thwart your efforts.
Yeah, the one I'd add to that, I fully agree with Laz on that. I also think it's very important to have a content strategy that, so it goes to my first secret, that people who think that, hey, I just want to do, a one-day telemarketing blitz, and it's not part of that comprehensive outreach, are going to be less and less successful and not get a great return. That really sort of mapping out, like the last question suggested, the type of information you want to get out there, all the different channels, and start thinking a little bit more comprehensively about building a base to build credibility. You really have to think through some of that content, and it's no more sort of these one-off campaigns. It's really part of this integrated long-term approach that we see being most successful. And so people really have to gear up and start, maybe not having all the pieces at once, but at least be thinking in those terms to be successful, and those people tend to do much better.
That's great. Again, thank you so much, Laz, for joining us today. We appreciate your thoughts and your insights, and Ken as well. Glad to have you guys on here today. And again, thank you everybody for your attendance, and this concludes today's webinar.
Yeah, Take care, folks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks everybody for showing up. Hope you found it valuable.